Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for March 5th, 2024 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. There were strong southerly winds in the morning, so Kim and I started the day out at the Braddock Bay East Spit. And this is taken actually between the East Spit and the Barrier Island. So this is the Barrier Island over here. And all of this sand here would normally be underwater most years. But some years, like this year, when the lake level is low, you're actually able to walk across. And this can be really good habitat for shorebirds later on. And speaking of shorebirds, here's a killdeer that was along the edge of the water. Killdeer are a type of plover. And here's a look out over Lake Ontario. You can see the sky. It was a beautiful morning, pretty warm with that nice southerly wind, so we were excited to see some migration. Here's a group of American widgeons, and to identify widgeons in flight, look at where the white is. So on these adult males, look at where the white patch is located. I think that distinguishes them from all of our other duck species. And here's another look at a male American widgeon, and they're just really handsome ducks. We had our first flock of sandhill cranes for the season with this group of 5, with a Canada goose leading the pack. And we saw these from the East Spit, but actually they look like they flew right over the hawk platform. So if we had been over there, we would have had a really, really good look. But we were just happy to see them. Here's a horned lark, and this one has a bit of a dollar facial pattern to it, so perhaps a female. There were a lot of blackbirds on the move today. Here we have a common grackle, and just look at the size of that tail. This mourning dove gave a nice look too, and I like how you can see the different lengths of the folded tail feathers. The scientific name of mourning dove is Zenaida macrora, macro-aura. Macro meaning large or long, and aura meaning tail. So we see that long tail that mourning doves have. As we got to the parking lot, I took this photo to show a portion of the 130 mute swans that were around this morning. I got to Braddock Bay Park around 9 a.m. to start the Hawk Watch, and there was a decent morning flight of songbirds going on. That southerly wind was continuing, and it kept warming up throughout the morning. Eventually, the wind did start to die down a little bit, and right at 12:30, the lake breeze hit. And it was a very sudden change in temperature and a very, very cold wind. It was extremely noticeable. Lake breeze in March hits a lot harder than it does later on in the season, when sometimes the lake breeze feels quite pleasant. But anyway, it ended up being a really nice day overall. They had been calling for it to be mostly cloudy, but we had a lot of sunshine today. In fact, I think I got a little bit of sunburn. And even when the wind shifted, we were still hanging on to a bit of a flight in the afternoon, although those birds were a little more distant over towards the parkway side, so not good for photos. Here's a small flock of rusty blackbirds, and you can see the variation in the plumages. Some of them are very dark overall, and you can see that yellow eye that they have. Others are really rusty in color, and some of them are in between. And here's a closer look at 2 rusty blackbirds. I also had the first of season brown-headed cowbirds today, so here's a male, and you can see that it has a black body essentially, and only the head is brown, although in this photo it doesn't stand out as much. And cowbirds are very small compared to the other blackbirds, so that also helps to pick them out from the flocks. Here we have a killdeer in flight. Notice those pointy wingtips and also the double breastband. Here's a species that I was happy to see. We had a small flock of pine siskins, and notice that highlight of yellow on the wings. Here's another look at a siskin. They're very stripy underneath with very thin pointy bills and a forked tail. The northern cardinals were enjoying the warm weather and were perched up in trees singing. Here is the first sharp-shinned hawk of the season. So sharp-shins are accipiters, so they have long tails. And they're very small compared to the similar Cooper's hawk. So that was the first thing that stood out about this bird. Just it was doing very tight circles and flapping very quickly. Just gave me the impression that it was a small bird. We see a squared off tail tip and a relatively small head. Here's a turkey vulture, and we had an excellent flight of vultures today with a total of 65, which is a really huge number for this time of year. Many seasons we might just be getting the first turkey vultures of the season around now. Here is a juvenile Cooper's hawk. So Cooper's hawks are also accipiters, so they have long tails. but notice that we can see that the outer tail feathers, which tuck underneath, are shorter than the central ones, which stick out more. So if this bird fanned its tail a little bit, the tail tip would look rounded. Cooper's hawks have larger heads than sharp-shinned hawks, and if we look at the underside plumage, this is very typical of what we see on juvenile Cooper's hawks, where it's a brown teardrop streaking that is more heavily up here on the upper breast and a little bit lighter down here on the belly. Here we have an adult red-tailed hawk, and red-tailed hawks are sort of the shape that all other raptors are compared to. So if you want to know one shape and one hawk, this is a good one to know. Looking at the field marks, we see the dark patagial bars here in the shoulder area, as well as that belly band. And we know it's an adult because it has a dark trailing edge to the wing and a red tail. Here's another adult red-tailed hawk, and again we see those same field marks. Dark patagial bars in the shoulder area, and a dark belly band, a dark trailing edge to the wings, and a red tail. Now the red tail sticks out more on the upper side than the underside, so photos like this, sometimes the tail looks a little more orange or pinkish. I had my first red-shouldered hawks of the season today, and all of them that I could age were adults like this one. We had a good flight of them with 28 total. So looking at this, we see that red shoulders have an overall similar shape to red tails. They're both in the Buteo genus, but red shoulders are maybe a little bit more slender looking, not quite as big and bulky as the red-tailed hawks. But on the adult red shoulders, we see a lot of orange coloration on the underside, and then a black and white patterning to the wings. And the tail looks like a blackboard with thin white chalk lines on it. Here's another adult red-shouldered hawk, and this one is in a glide posture. So you can see the wingtips are tucked back a little bit, and the tail is folded. How about this bird? Is this a red tail or a red shoulder? Well, we see those dark patagial bars, and we can just make out the dark belly band. The dark trailing edge to the wing and the red tail make this a red-tailed hawk adult. How about this one? Well, we see some orange coloration to the underside and that black and white patterning to the wings and tail. And we see another important field mark for red-shouldered hawk, which this is, which is translucent crescents near the wingtips. You can see the light shines through here. And that is something that really helps us pick out red-shouldered hawks from a distance, especially when the sun is shining through there. I took this photo looking out over Lake Ontario to show the heat shimmer that we get as we look out over the lake. And at one point just before this, I was looking at a bird. It was a turkey vulture, I'm pretty sure, but I couldn't get my binoculars to focus on it. It was like there was a lot of heat shimmer, and right after that is when the lake breeze hit. So sometimes you get that temperature difference between the air masses that causes a lot of distortion to your vision. But like I said earlier, that lake breeze hit hard right around 12:30 p.m. and dropped the temperature significantly, and it was a change to a less favorable wind. That lake breeze normally comes out of the northeast, and it pushes all of the migrating raptors away from the lake shore. We had the first tree swallows of the season today, and tree swallows are bluish green on top and white underneath. And I looked it up, and last year we didn't have tree swallows until March 18th. So about 2 weeks earlier this year. Just like many other species, they're showing up a lot earlier this year because of the unseasonably warm temperatures and the favorable southerly winds for overnight migration. Here we have an immature bald eagle. We see that classic bald eagle shape with large head. And we see a lot of splotchy white throughout the body and the underside of the wings, and that's typical of bald eagles as compared to golden eagles, which look much cleaner with their white patches underneath. And speaking of golden eagles, we had one that glided high overhead, and if we look at this bird, look how small the head looks compared to the tail. It looks like the tail sticks out much farther than the small head, whereas on bald eagles, they look more evenly proportioned. Now, this golden eagle does not have any white patches in the wings and is likely an adult. And it's typical that early in the season like this, we would be seeing adults that want to get up on their breeding grounds first. And then throughout April and May, we see a lot of the immature golden eagles, which often show large white patches in the wings and on the base of the tail. All right, let's try to figure out this raptor. So what do we see? Well, it looks like it has fairly pointed wingtips. And a lot of times when we see that, we're thinking falcon, but we'll keep that in mind for the moment. We also see a very long tail on this bird. And it looks like the underside is mostly white with some brown streaking to it. So this is actually not a falcon. This is a different species with more pointed wings. This is a northern harrier. And since it's what we would call a brown type harrier, we know those are the adult females or the juveniles. And based on the streaking on the upper breast here, I would say this is probably an adult female northern harrier. Here we have a hawk where we see those dark patagial bars and a belly band. But in this case, we don't really see that bold, dark trailing edge to the wing, and the tail doesn't look red. It looks more brownish with a little bit of banding on it. So this is a red-tailed hawk, but it is a juvenile, so it's one that would have been born last year. And towards the end of the day, it started to cloud up a little bit more, and we were treated to a little bit of a rainbow. So here I am relaxing and checking that out. And here's another look at that small rainbow out over Lake Ontario. And Kim and I went out in the evening to watch the American woodcocks, and I'm eagerly awaiting a phone call from National Geographic. Taking a look at the eBird checklist from the East Spit in the morning, we had 45 species. And from the Hawk Watch, we had 61 species today. I picked up 11 new species for the season today, which were, starting from the bottom, brown-headed cowbird, sandhill crane, rusty blackbird, sharp-shinned hawk, red-shouldered hawk, rough-legged hawk, hairy woodpecker, American kestrel, tree swallow, pine siskin, and white-throated sparrow, bringing me up to 82 species for the season. And taking a look at hawk count for our migrant raptor totals, today we had 65 turkey vultures, 15 bald eagles, 8 northern harriers, 1 sharp-shinned hawk, 5 Cooper's hawks, 28 red-shouldered hawks, 49 red-tailed hawks, 1 rough-legged hawk, which was a dark morph that was too distant to photograph in the afternoon, 1 golden eagle, 1 American kestrel, and 1 merlin for a total of 175 migrating raptors today. That brings the March total to 213 and the season total to 371. For tomorrow, they're calling for rain showers in the morning and then steady light rain in the afternoon. High of only 44 and winds north-northeast at 10 to 15. So these are unfavorable conditions. May even cancel the count and not have it at all, just because there won't be anything migrating. For Thursday, it's looking like a mix of sun and clouds. High around 44 again, but northeast winds 10 to 20. That's a strong, unfavorable wind. Wouldn't expect much migration, especially this early in the season. For Friday, again, intervals of clouds and sun, high in the upper 40s, but easterly winds at 10 to 15. Again, an unfavorable wind, would not expect much migration. Today was a great day of birding, and for visiting the Hawk Watch, it was beautiful weather, although it was a bit of a roller coaster with those switching winds. We had some really nice totals and the best day so far. But looks like the next few days we'll take a step back, have a chance to sleep in and rest a little bit, and then we'll be prepared for the next big push on southerly winds, hopefully sometime soon. Hope to see you out soon at the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. From Lyco Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.